Hey, there we are. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to our Joy of Landscape Photography Hangout, sponsored by the Digital Photography Workshops, which we are all a part of this year, doing a couple trips later on this fall. And so we decided to try and get together for this hangout and talk about why we do this, what we love about doing it, but also a bit about how we do it, what we bring to it, what we take home from it, and hopefully maybe get some of you to come along with us a couple times. I want to quickly introduce our guests this evening. My name is Rob Sylvan, and I'm going to kind of try and act as the MC, and hopefully we'll do all right. And I'll just kind of go left to right. We've got Brian Matthias here, our Google Photos evangelist. And Brian, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about you and how you come to this.
Sure. My name is Brian. Right now I work at Google as their global photos products evangelist. But I've been a photographer for a long time, and landscape photography especially is probably the most near and dear to my heart. So I'm super excited about this particular hangout just because it's about something that both my wife over here and I think a lot about, we talk about, we compare notes all the time. So I guess I want to say thank you for having me.
Cool. And that's a good segue. Nicole Young, glad to have you on. Nicole and I go way back, paths crisscrossed through many things, and really glad to get to do a workshop with you. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this.
Sure. My name is Nicole Young, and Brian we were married, so he's my husband. I was the wife.
That's how it works.
Clarify that.
Keeping it in the family.
Nicole, it looks like his office is a whole lot smaller than yours.
I know, he jumped in a closet. He's like just has his desk situated weird. That's why he's in black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Show you.
Here it is.
So I obviously photograph landscapes. I've actually just been doing landscapes since 2010, 2011, and before that I photographed a lot of stock photography, a lot of people photography. I do a lot of food photography as well. I currently work on that too. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do a lot of things. I write books.
Yeah.
I sell things. I have a store I sell things in. I write self-publish my own ebooks. I've done some instruction. I've done workshops with The Giving Lens, instructor for Kelby Training. You know, it's like kind of all over the place.
And you were in the Navy. So.
And I was in the Navy. Yeah, that's Rob and my link. We didn't know each other in the Navy, but you know, still there.
One more path crossing there. Great, excellent. And then my buddy Randy Van Dynen here. Randy and I have been working at Photoshop World for years and years, and Randy is one of the original founders of the Digital Photo Workshops, and I kind of just jumped on board. He hadn't really a choice. I just kind of forced myself in.
And it was a great jumping in too. You came in with both feet running. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. You were on the very first one with us.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're at and how you got into this?
All right. Well, my name's Randy Van Dynen. I'm an architectural photographer down here in St. Petersburg, Florida, although I've lived all over. I've lived in Southern California, San Francisco, and have been doing photography since high school with a couple little breaks here or there, but I've been doing it for a long time. I love landscape photography, always have. Back in college, my girlfriend back there bought me, I still have the book, an Ansel Adams book saying, "You'll be like this soon." So I always keep trying to get up to that potential. But I love landscape photography, and I love architectural photography, along with some crazy stuff I've been doing lately with compositing and everything else. I speak at a lot of different things. I'm speaking at a lot of conventions next year, and you know, I love doing our workshops. Rob has been just great on these workshops with us. He brings such a great knowledge base about Lightroom and everything else like that to these workshops. So it's been a wonderful having him on these. So you know, when you come to one of these workshops with us, if you have any questions about Lightroom, Rob's there and can answer anything. So that's great.
Excellent. Well, great to have all you guys here. And so the general flow for this hangout is I really want to talk about kind of not only why we love to do this landscape photography, but then get into some of the how, some of the gear that we use, the apps that we use, how we get ourselves ready, how we pack, anything that we think might be helpful for people who also want to do this, whether they come with us or not. And to kind of say a little bit about me, one of the things that I did way back in a kind of previous life after the Navy was I was an outdoor education major, and I loved just being outdoors. And that was kind of the path I thought I was heading on, and I kind of got sidetracked down into technology and photography. And so I'm really grateful to get to be able to cycle back into teaching and being outdoors. And photography is really just the vehicle to get me out there. I love just being out there. When we get up in the morning, so very early sometimes, or stay out really late, and we're just kind of standing and watching this beauty unfold, the sun rising over the dunes in Death Valley or someplace in Moab or wherever we happen to be. It's just wonderful to get to be there, and my camera is the reason why I'm there. I don't often get to just stand around in a national park for no other reason. So that's really what the joy for me of landscape photography is just being there. And then if I get great images, then that's just awesome. That's just totally icing on the cake. But part of any good, successful trip is good preparation for that trip. And there's lots of different tools out there to help us prepare for a trip these days. It's kind of staggering. And I wanted maybe if you guys can maybe just share some of the tips, some of the tools, some of the things you use to kind of get your research phase of preparation going. Maybe Brian, you want to start?
Sure. So for me, I try to, depending on where it is I'm going with regards to the landscape photography, I kind of budget on a few things happening, like just at face value. I budget like that. Where I'm going, I probably won't have any cell signal. And so one of the things I try to do as often as I can, I did this actually what became invaluable earlier this year. I went with two friends to Vermilion Cliffs area, White Pocket, down in the Arizona Utah area. And what I did prior when I had Wi-Fi was I was able to kind of download local copies of maps onto my phone, offline copies. And what that did was it kind of helped me get, no matter where I am, I have like actual graphical information, which was really awesome. Another thing that I do, I don't actually do often is I try not to look at too many photos from the areas that I'm going to, only because I don't want to bias myself. Like I'll just look, like if Nicole and I are planning on doing something, we'll look at some photos, but I just do a very cursory look just to get an idea. But beyond that, I try not to set myself up to with a shot in mind per se, because I feel like that kind of adulterates the experience. And then the other thing I do is I couldn't recommend enough is there's this one app called the Photographer's Ephemeris. Nicole and I and a few other photographers just the other morning for sunrise we went to Trillium Lake, which is right kind of at the base of Mount Hood here in Oregon. And it was still, we had probably about 15 minutes before the sun actually rose, and I couldn't tell at all where the sun was rising. I didn't check yet. And I first asked my friend Brian, who's with us, and then I checked this app called the Photographer's Ephemeris, which is an invaluable app. It's on iOS and Android. And basically what it does is it'll show you specifically where you're standing. It'll show you where the sunrise will come from, where the sunset will come from, where the moonrise and the moonset. It'll give you sunrise and sunset information. It'll give you tidal information. You can go into the future. You can choose a different location, so you can kind of plan where you should be. So that's a huge one.
Yeah, that's an awesome app. And just so people know, we're working on a blog post on the digitalphotoworkshops.com that's going to contain links to any app, gear, software, tool thing that we mention, any tutorials that we mention, things like that. So we'll have that at the end. This Hangout is being saved to YouTube, so you can rewatch this as well. But we're gonna capture all this information and keep it in a blog post for everyone too. And I'm glad you said it, because I've never known the correct way to pronounce that app. I use that app too, and I read it to myself, but I don't know if I'm ever saying it correctly. So
I think it's ephemeris. I don't think it's ephemeris. It could.
Maybe somebody will let us know in the comments.
Tomato.
Yeah. Speaking of comments, I just posted on the event page for this how to enter our little giveaway. We're going to be giving away 2 free passes to any of our future workshops happening this year, and there are 2. There's one that is going to Grand Teton National Park and around that area, and Brian is going to be our guest instructor on that one. And that's happening at the end of September. It's a beautiful time to be there. The leaves are turning gold. You might have snow on the mountains. You might have snow in the valley even.
We did last year.
Yeah, just a beautiful place to go. And then in October, we'll be in Arches National Park, Canyonlands, Moab area, and Nicole is going to be our special guest instructor for that one. And it's just an amazing places to go at that time of year. So if you're interested in entering that, just head over to the digitalphotoworkshops.com. Right on the home page is a form to just enter your name and email address for our newsletter. Anyone who's entered in there tonight is eligible to win. We'll contact you and we'll sort that all out. So just want to mention that. All right, Nicole, what about you? What are some of the preparation things that you do when you're looking at a trip?
Well, I'm kind of like Brian, where you want to look at photos. Like, for example, we're actually trying to plan something to do within the next couple weeks. We want to kind of just get away, take some pictures. And the great thing about being married to a photographer is that we pretty much always plan our vacations around beautiful locations to photograph. So I was just like searching on Google, and I do a lot of Google image searches, and I'm like, okay, well, what's in this area? Quick image search to see if it's a worthwhile location to go visit. And if you can, in some places, if you could even do Street View, depending on the location, if it's close enough to a road, to give you kind of the non-photographer's perspective of a location. Yet just yesterday, actually, we were having dinner with some friends, and the husband was a photographer, the wife was not, and she was showing me some photos of a waterfall that in like Thailand or somewhere in Southeast Asia, and she was like apologizing because the photos weren't that great. I was like, no, these are beautiful, because she was telling me how I should go to this waterfall, and I'm like, no, first of all, they're not awful photos. Don't put yourself down, but I actually prefer to look at simple iPhone images and like non-stylized photos when I'm actually scouting a location to go to, because that's going to allow me to say, well, what can I do? How can I create my own vision, my own photograph out of this, and I see a broader perspective of it. Because you look at landscape photos sometimes, and then when you actually, you'll see like a gorgeous photograph on whatever, like 500 pixels, or a friend of yours that took it, and then you actually go there and you're like, yeah. Wow, how do they get that out of this? Or the lights are different, or the clouds are different, or whatever. So, but yeah, Google image search is pretty awesome. I prefer that. Let's see, what else? Well, I mean, and then let's say you already know where you're gonna go to, like you're gonna go to Moab, and you've already kind of done some of your figuring out where. And actually, Moab is probably one of those good places you could do Street View from, because I'm pretty sure you could go through the whole park and see everything that's off the road, and a lot of the stuff is like right off the road. Then that's when you just have to start figuring out what you're gonna bring and how you're gonna pack. And when I do, I do a lot of local landscape photography. Brian and I live in Portland, Oregon, so we, don't have to go very far to photograph some, waterfalls or whatever. And so I kind of have an idea of what I'm going to bring, and it's almost always in my camera bag. But when I'm traveling somewhere, I write a list. I'm a total list person. So, I have like my gear that I'm going to bring, my, rain jackets for what, you never know if it's going to rain on you. I try and get those waterproof. They're only like $5, and they're like a plastic thing that you can cover your
little plastic bag kind of thing for your camera. Yeah.
I've never had to use one.
Yeah.
But they just slip right into your camera bag, and it's like one of those things where if I use one out of like 10 years, it'll be worth it because then I'll be able to cover my camera. So yeah, we can get.
I just want to, just because Nicole kind of started bringing up packing and stuff. And like we both use, as far as lists go, we both use Wunderlist, like as our kind of like just checklist thing. We also use Evernote for, I think, longer form things. Nicole's obsessed with it.
Yeah.
But it is important to kind of know, pack the kind of clothing for the region, and not only for the region, but for the time of year for that region. So, like for instance, using Oregon as an example, right now we're going through some crazy heat wave. But when you get out under the canopy of trees, sometimes it cools off a bit. So, for me personally, I'm in love with like REI. REI makes these like, I think the pants are called Sahara, and they're convertible pants, which means around the knee section there's a zipper which you can remove the lower part of the pants and convert it into shorts. But it's made out of this really lightweight material that's waterproof, and it just is perfect. I also invest in like Smartwool socks and Smartwool gloves, and if I ever go traveling, like if I go here like shooting a waterfall, I'll usually I'll wear my hiking boots which have really good tread, and I'll always bring like a pair of flip-flops, because almost invariably when we're done with the shoot, even though the boots that I have are waterproof, we'll trudge through some deepish kind of like almost knee-level water. Your feet are going to get soaked. They're going to get totally drenched, which is fine, no big deal. But it's never comfortable, driving back home with soaking shoes. So
or just an extra pair of socks. Like I've trained myself to always throw in an extra pair of socks in my bag, because it happens all the time where I'm like, oh, because I only maybe wore the one pair of shoes, or I wear like those Keens that are kind of the waterproof where they have all the little openings on the side, and they're not too bad, but I don't want to wear them with no socks and then my feet are cold and it's like really uncomfortable. So I almost always have a free pair of socks just like hanging out in my bag. It's like one of those little things, you don't really think about it until you're like, oh, this is really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. It's not so much about like pamper yourself comfort. It's just about you're going to be out in some place that it might be, you might be far away from your room. You might be hiking for a while. You came there to photograph. You don't want to be ready to go back in because you're too cold, you're too wet, you're too hot, you're too whatever. You want to be ready to handle the elements. You want to be dressed.
Well, one of the things that I found out, Rob,
there's no bad weather. There's just bad clothing, right? So you just have to be always ready and aware of that. So Randy, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. One of the things I've learned on all these is definitely layers.
Layers.
Just layers. I mean, we start out early in the morning, and all of a sudden the sun pops up, and you're starting to get hot. So as long as you can start taking off some things or putting more things on, it just seems that way every time. You go out there, it's cold, and as soon as the sun comes up, you start heating up and heating up. So I say layering is a great thing for clothing on these things.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
Super quick. One of the things that I've actually come to kind of look at agreed with Randy 100% with layers is the kind of packability of stuff. And so, if, for instance, at the Arizona trip to Vermilion Cliffs, it was getting super cold, and so packing layers of like the Smartwool base layers, the shells, you have to take that with you, because like you said that it might be a while before you get back to your camp or wherever you're staying, and to that end, like on the jacket side, I've become a huge fan of those Scotty vests. Scotty Vests is a company, and the founder, his thing was like he would make like jackets and vests that had pockets big enough to put a full iPad. That was like his thing. But they have this one jacket that I have that packs into itself. It turns into, like, essentially the whole thing turns into a pouch with a little clip. So that's almost always clipped to the side of my camera bag, and it's wonderful because it's like the perfect layer. It's got a hood. It's got a ton of pockets. So that is invaluable as well. And usually I'm wearing like an REI vest, like a down vest.
Yeah. Well, when we were in Tetons last September, around the same time we're going to be there this year, one morning we woke up to snow flurries, and you're up pre-dawn, so it's usually that's the coldest point it's going to be in the day, and if there's any precipitation at all, you're going to be wet. So you don't want to start off your whole day wet and cold. So being ready to handle that, and so when you're checking the weather, which is one of the other preparation things, you can do is, some sites you can look up online, not only what the weather is, currently, but look at what it's been historically.
Yes.
And don't just look at, the highs or the lows, but look at, our typical workshop. We're out in the morning. We get up early. We go out before sunrise. We stay out until after sunrise is over. Then we come back in for breakfast. And so you have time, typically in our workshops, to change if you're wet or whatever. But you're out in the coldest, potentially, part of the day. And then you're inside for probably the warmer part of the day when we were in the classroom times, having lunch. And then we head back out in the afternoon and then into the evening where it's then getting cool again. So the hot temperature of the day may not really affect you because you might be actually indoors at that time. It's the cooler temps. Right?
Yeah.
What about, Randy, do you have any other preparation or packing?
I will say something just because Brian says, he doesn't. One of the things I first do when I'm looking to go someplace is look at 500px.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, they have, some of the best images around. It's going to give you a good idea of what's around that area. And to me, that's one of the first places I'm going to go to research it. The second thing is I am going to have some maps. I'm going to put them on my iPad and have maps and ready to go, and really study what's going on. And I'm also going to look at sunrise and sunset times. These are pretty basic things, but they're the ones that, the most important. You need to know what time sun's going to start, what time you need to get out there. So I'm going to look at those things first. And like Nicole said, also just a Google search for images that aren't 500px. I mean, 500px probably has some of the best photography out there. If you go ahead and just look on Google, you're going to see a lot of things from a lot of different people who aren't necessarily professionals that'll give you an idea, of the area, maybe a little bit more context of what's around you when you're shooting.
Yeah.
Someone actually made
go ahead, Nicole. Go ahead, sorry.
Someone commented in the question box that they actually learned a tip from both you and Randy, Rob and Randy here, about using hand warmers, carrying hand warmers with you. Yeah. And that's like a really, is it Shelly or Shelly Hire? I apologize if I completely butchered your name.
Yeah.
I actually have a whole container of them sitting in our closet over here, and I stuff them in my bag whenever I see, when I know I'm gonna go somewhere cold. So. Yeah. No, that's it's really great. Now, Shelly, I always have hand warmers and foot warmers in my bag. One of my little creature comforts that I got. This was a Christmas present. It's not a flask. It's like a flask. You could bring a flask. I'm not saying you should, but this is actually it's a hand warmer.
Oh.
From like the 50s. It's called a Peacock, and it runs on Zippo lighter fluid. There's no flame, but you pour the fluid inside this little thing, and then there's this little catalytic converter type deal, and it's just this chemical reaction, and this puppy gets really warm, and it will last about 12 hours or so, and I'll just keep that in my pocket, and I don't know, it makes me, it's a bit nostalgic, and it's definitely a nice cozy heat.
But Rob, it has one drawback, doesn't it? You can't take Zippo lighter fluid on the plane with you, so you have to find
that's my problem. So every workshop, I spend the first day running around trying to find Zippo lighter fluid, so I can fill this guy up, because they generally don't like you carrying a bottle of lighter fluid on a plane.
Well, it's suspicious.
Yeah.
There's one last item also. I should just grab. I'm gonna grab it right now, but it's here. Oh, I can't find it.
We'll put it on the list and add it to the blog post.
I found it.
Okay.
It's this thing. So we're talking about things when we're really cold.
Camelback.
This is like when it's really hot, like if we're at Moab and stuff. So this is kind of a water bladder. This one's by a Camelback, which is probably the most famous of in this space. And what I do is in the morning I'll fill this up with like cold water, and it has this nice rubber gasket, so it's pretty much leak-proof, and then it connects to this tube. The important thing is obviously you want to make sure that you have a camera bag that has a pocket for a water bladder. Usually it's kind of like insulated and kind of segregated from the rest of the camera gear. And so, this to me is also invaluable because, instead of having a whole separate water bottle probably somewhere on your body jangling around, yeah, it's kind of snug and it's always there for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, actually, I got a bag that Mindshift.
Oh yeah.
Sent me to try out. Mindshift is the people behind Think Tank, which are just awesome bags. And so I've got this bag here. It's a monster of a bag, but it has it's the Rotation 180.
Yeah, that's the one I have.
Yeah, it is an awesome
I freaking love it.
It is a serious. Well, what it reminds me of is if I was actually going to go backpacking, this is a backpacking bag. It's so adjustable, and comfortable in that way. Never mind all of the pockets and things it can hold. But anyway, so I'll be doing a little photo focus review on that shortly.
Oh yeah, no, they sent me one too. And actually, when we get to it, I have an accessory that I'll show you, Rob, that I just got that is tremendous for that.
Yeah. I took it up to Acadia a couple weeks ago and tried to give it a dry run that way, and I just wanted to keep walking with it. It was the most comfortable bag, loaded out with a lot of gear that I've probably had.
Hey Rob, we got a question. And it kind of pertains to this. If you are flying to your destination, do you pack your gear in the same pack case that you use in the field, or do you have separate packs for flying and field? Any recommendations?
Great question. She's great. Boy, we should have her come on a trip.
One of the things I have to say is I have a Think Tank bag, a roller bag that I travel with, and that's what I go on the airplanes and stuff with. When I'm out in the field, I have one of the Think Tank belt systems, and I love the belt system. To me, it is just incredible. I used to carry the backpack when I was out there, but what I found out is I'd have to take the backpack off, set it down, get the lenses out, and change it. With the belt system, I just whip it around. I change lenses a lot more often than I do with a backpack because they're right there. It also holds them as I'm changing the lenses. So I love Think Tank's belt system.
Yeah, it looks like you have a bandolier too, so it looks like you're ready to throw down with grenades or stuff.
Yeah, I feel like Batman with a utility belt.
Yeah. I'm gonna go. I can go ahead and show because I love Think Tank. Nothing against Think Tank, but I use the for my landscape stuff. I don't know if this is all shown here. I use the F-Stop Loca bag. So
okay.
There's a little inside of it.
It's so pretty.
It's kind of like the Mindshift in the same, where it's a backpacking type bag.
Yeah.
And that bag actually I have two. I bought that one because it's blue because it was so pretty. But I have another one that's real similar, and that one has gone to like 2 or 3 different countries with me. But to answer Shelly's question, I put all of my gear in that bag, and that's my carry-on. That's one of my carry-ons for the plane. So of course, you want to carry all your camera gear on board, which I think everyone probably knows. But I pack that thing just like I would if I were going to go on the field, and I usually stuff more things in the top. But the great thing about the Loca bag, or the F-Stop bags in general, is that you get the bag, and then you get what's called an ICU. Brian, what does that stand for?
Internal camera unit, I think.
Yeah. So you can get different sizes, and I actually intentionally got a little bit smaller size for my bag. So I have half of my camera bag consists of actual camera space, and the other half is just empty space to shove whatever, like a jacket or water bottle or whatever I feel like putting in the top there, or just leave it empty if I don't need, if I just want a little bit lighter bag. But I can fit all the gear that I need to do any type of landscape travel, landscape photography or travel photography in that. I have right now, I can kind of show you what I have in here. I have, that's shown okay.
Nice. So
I have 2 lenses, my camera, and some of my filters, my long exposure filters, and then some miscellaneous pouches in there. So
yeah, I mean, actually, Rob, one of the things to kind of combine the two, and I provided Think Tank Mindshift people with this feedback is the Rotation Pro that we both have, that comes with its own version of an ICU, which in my opinion is not good. And so what I actually did was I have been an f-stop user for many years, and I really do dig them. However, once I got this this Mindshift bag, it really just kind of opened my eyes. Like, this is really awesome. But what I ended up doing was in my Rotation 180, I actually have an f-stop ICU instead, because the Mindshift one tapers towards the top, so you lose a lot of precious real estate, even though there's space in there.
Yeah.
And the f-stop one is more of a square.
Cool.
So it holds all of my stuff. But I know if we want to. Oh, but to answer the question, actually, I think Nicole and I, like, we will never check, ever check our camera gear when we're flying. Thankfully, the Rotation 180 and the f-stop Loka are rated with the FAA to fit, under the seat, or if it's a large enough plane, it'll fit in the bins above. If you're flying more of a Canadian regional jet, or one of the Bombardier planes, you probably have to put it under, because those things on top, or you could maybe put a tripod, which I do bring with me as well.
Carry on.
At carry. The only time I didn't do that was, I think it was when we went to Cambodia last year. I wanted to have a small setup, a smaller bag, and I think it was a think tank, like maybe a retrospective or something like that. And what I did was I actually packed that retrospective bag in my checked bag luggage, and I would just switch essentially the gear from one bag to the other. But that was super cumbersome. Now I just one bag, all my gear is in it. It's on an official laptop slot, Rob, but on the very outside you'll see there's this long zipper.
Yeah.
What I did was I bought a padded sleeve for my laptop.
Yeah.
Fits in a 15-inch MacBook Pro Retina. Fits in both the sleeve and that pin. So that's
try that.
Yeah. Trust me, I've
trust
had,
yeah. Same with the f-stop Loka, and I'm sure most of their bags do the same. There's not really an official laptop. Well, maybe it's kind of a little pocket for stuff. I think it's actually for the hydration pack.
Yes.
But I'll pad my laptop and then stick it back there, and it works just fine. You do want to be a little wary because it doesn't have any extra padding, but for traveling overseas and things like that, it's great because you have everything with you in just one bag.
Yeah, well, that's good to know, because what I typically do is I haven't tried it with this bag. I haven't flown with this rotation bag yet, but with my Low Pro sling bag, I have my previous outdoor bag. I take all my gear out of it, and I pack the bag into my suitcase, and then pack my clothes and stuff inside of it. I will sometimes check the legs on my tripod and take the head in my carry-on. And then I have an airport acceleration backpack that's just one of those perfect squares that airplanes love. And I put all my gear in that for while I'm traveling. Then when I get to location, I kind of use that bag as my gear getting in and out of bag, and then load up my backpack pack for going out. So I'll have to try. I love that airport acceleration I just know it's going to fit overhead on just about any plane. So
the Rotation has really nice compression straps too.
Yeah, it does.
You can really cinch it down. The last thing I wanted to, in terms of if we're talking about packing stuff, I'll rifle through a few quick things that I think are super important. The first, I just got this. My good buddy at Think Tank sent it over. This is the insert for it. It's called the Mindshift Filter Hive.
Oh, yeah.
This thing just came out. It's sold out from last I checked. So it's a pocket, Rob, that this thing goes in, and the pocket attaches to the belt part of the rotation bag. So when you actually take that, that big the swing pocket.
Yeah. The waist pack. Yeah.
With the waist pack, when you switching that out, this kind of swings along with it. So it doesn't intrude, but this holds all of my filter gear, everything. It holds I use Format High Tech exclusively, and it holds my holder. I have right in here. I've got 4 adapter rings.
Wow.
I've got a 105 millimeter circular polarizer. I've got 3 4x4, a 3-stop, a 6-stop, and a 10-stop, and then I've got a 3-stop soft grad and a 3-stop reverse grad.
Wow. And that would fit the Lee system too in there.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely, totally, 100%. They're the same sizes. So that it used to be that I would have like 4 different pouches, like a pouch for this, a pouch for the polarizer, a pouch for 3 of the filters, and it was super cumbersome.
Yeah, I still have that.
It looks something like what I have in here, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Shove it all into like one thing, and I just leave my polarizer, you know, stuck on the thing, and
yeah.
I think I'm using like a Think Tank. I don't know what this is. Cable Management 20.
Yeah. No, but
it works.
there are two more other things super quickly, and then I'll give it up because I don't want to hog everything. I invested in these not too long ago, and I know Nicole has since. It's these Zeiss lens wipes.
Yay!
They look like little condom wrappers, but they're not.
They look like what?
Kids, don't try this.
You keep one in your wallet, Brian?
Don't leave home without it.
Protection.
I think actually someone did once think it was. But these things are like little disposable,
Alcohol wipes.
alcohol wipes. Yeah, the towelette things, and they're made specifically for optics.
Yeah.
And because like a lot of times what I do is when I'm cleaning a polarizer or a filter or something with a microfiber cloth, you know, you're just kind of like smushing all the junk that's already on there.
Yeah.
And this stuff, it gets rid of it and it dries. You can see how quickly it dries. So for lenses and for filters, it's invaluable. I mean, you can go on Amazon and I have a box of 200 of them for I think $12 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
If you wear glasses, I use these things all the time because and so it's like the same thing. So I have them with me all the time, and I use them for my lenses. I use them for my glasses.
Screens, yeah, all that.
Good
stuff.
to see.
Now,
Very
the
good.
last thing that I want to show is, as landscape photographers, we're going to be shooting in a very wide and diverse variety of floors, I guess. And so I use really Right Stuff also exclusively as my tripod system. And when you get, like most tripods, when you get a tripod, there are rubber feet, which is great for general use. But I actually have these 2 different sets of feet. This is a spike foot, and actually I've carried these on many times. Never, knock on wood, haven't had any issues.
Mm-hmm.
This is if you're shooting in loose soil or sand, especially sand. If you're trying to do like at the beach, these are required because this digs right into the sand. And if a wave comes, the problem with long exposure on the beach is when the wave comes out, when the tide goes back out, the tripod sometimes slides and you ruin your exposure. Yeah. This one is a rock foot, and it's actually, you can see it's quite sharp. And this is for, I'm going to be bringing this to Moab because if we're, a lot of times you do that tripod yoga where, one leg is up, yeah. And sometimes a rubber foot's just not good enough for grip. And what this does is it kind of really grips into the rock, and it gives you that kind of stability. And it's something that I think with Really Right Stuff, I think it's like $60 or $70 for the set of 3 of each, so 60 for these, 60 for those. It's really worth it because the last thing you want is setting up your shot and your tripod slips and your camera falls or something like that.
Yeah.
So
excellent.
Yeah.
That's excellent. I'd also just as a tip, always check those feet, whether you bought new ones or especially if you spend $60 on them. Make sure they're tight before you go out. I have lost a foot, and I didn't realize it until I got to the location. I was like, oh, that.
Yeah.
And he was limping. He was limping around the whole photo shoot then.
Where's my sounds?
Right.
With these, they have these like little holes, so you can take a hex key, slide it through the holes and use it as a torque.
Nice. Yeah. Really nice. Let me take a moment to remind people, if you look at my little lower thirds there, you can see there's the website. Go there and just sign up for our newsletter. We won't spam you a lot. No, we won't spam you a lot. We're so bad at writing newsletters that you won't ever hear from us. But sign up for our newsletter. and you'll be entered in to win the 2 passes we're giving away for either of our 2 trips this year, and hope you will do that. I think we should probably move on. I'm looking at the time. Wow, it's already 20 of. Let's talk about day of the shooting. Things to keep in mind, things when you wake up that morning that you want to do, or before you go to bed that night. And also just note, if there's any other things you guys wanted to mention, I'll add that to the blog post, so we make sure we get all the links to all this gear and things that we've been talking about. Yeah. So anybody have anything they want to start off with?
I just want to talk about lenses for a minute, because I always have people ask me what we're going to bring.
All right, that's James asked that question. Let's talk lenses, because that's probably important to know before you actually leave, huh?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it helps. I find out that, I'm going to have 3 lenses that are going to be my basic lenses, and they're all zoom lenses. I'm going to bring the 16 to 35 millimeter wide-angle zoom lens. I'm going to bring the 24 to 70, which I find out I used a ton. It's a great lens that allows you to do a wide range of things with one lens. I mean, if someone says you can only take one lens, that's going to be my lens I'm going to take. And I also take a short telephoto. I usually end up not really using it that much. I find, Tetons more so. A matter of fact, for Tetons, I usually end up renting something from like Borrowed Lenses, like a 100 to 400, because there is so much wildlife in the Tetons.
Yeah.
So I will, do that. But I mean, with those 3 lenses, you're going to be able to cover mostly everything. I have tilt shift lenses. I've only really taken them out twice for different shots, different areas where they worked really well. They're more architectural lens, but occasionally they can be fun. And also the fun lens, and also one of the cheapest lenses you can buy is a fisheye.
Oh, yep. Yeah, Randy, you're a man after my own heart.
Well, I mean, the fisheye is just so much fun. I mean, it's an inexpensive lens. You can just have a whole lot of fun with it. It gives you a different perspective on a lot of shots that you do, and especially if you start, going low or just trying to get some different angles. It's a fun lens to use. And
not that it matters, but just people are curious. You're a Canon guy, right?
I am a Canon guy, yes.
I was up until yesterday. I sold, I think, my last Canon lens.
So Brian, on the subject of lenses, what are the things you typically bring, or make sure you always have?
I think it's almost exactly to Randy's point. I just switched over to Sony, like recently, because they added me to their Artisans of Imagery program, and I've just really liked what they've been doing. So I use this Sony A7R. I also have the A7, and I just the other day got the A7S I'm going to bring that for star photography. Nice. In terms of lenses, 1635. I'll tell you what I used to use in Canon, what I've sold, and what I'm using as replacement. I used to use the 14-2.8 as my ultra wide. That was like my baby, and I sold that. I shipped that out today. Instead, I now have I use a Sony 16-35-2.8, and that's an A-mount lens. So I have to use an adapter, like this A-mount to E-mount adapter. Then for mid-range, I use 24-70, just like Randy said, which is really nice. For long, if I'm walking, if it's a local shoot and I want a telephoto, I have a 70-200 f4, which is nice and light. But for like these kinds of trips, I also got a Sony 70-400 and a 1.4 teleconverter. So I'm good with length. If I usually want that for compression. I gave my 15 fisheye, my Funkbuster, to Nicole, and Sony has a 16 fisheye 2.8. So I'm still in the club. I love fisheye. I can't agree more with Randy. Fisheye, and the reason why I call it the Funkbuster is if you're just in a funk, you're hitting a creative block, and you just put that lens on. Rent it, buy it. It is worth every penny. The only Canon lens I kept was my 17 tilt shift, just because I can use it with the adapter, and it's just a tremendous lens. But I don't bring that for landscaping.
Do you ever rent lenses?
I have. From Borrow Lenses.
Borrow Lenses, where you go? Yeah, cool. All right, Nicole, what about you? What's your lens of choice?
Well, I'm actually, kind of in the same boat as these two guys. The two main lenses I take with me almost every place I go when I'm traveling or when I'm photographing landscapes and I'm a Canon user. I'm using a full frame, and I bring the 24-70 and the 70-200, and I just have the f4 version of the. I can just bring it up here. This is I've had this lens for years. I just like stuck my finger on it. I don't have a lens cap on it. So this is my favorite lens, one of my most favorite lenses, and the 24-70 as well. It's a really good range for me. I can get my wide angle stuff for my landscapes. I can do closer, tighter shots, whether it's just a far off landscape or it's people or whatever I'm going to shoot. And then particularly with Moab, I'm going to also take my 14mm fisheye, which is, I'm assuming we'll probably do some night photography and maybe some star stuff.
Definitely.
And that is I love that lens. It's fisheye, but it's very minimal distortion. So if you want to get, your lines a little bit cleaner, and whereas a normal fisheye is going to like warp the horizon like this one keeps the horizon a lot more straight. And granted, you can also go into places like Lightroom, Photoshop, and do a lot of correction with that as well. But I will bring that one for that one single purpose of doing like star stuff, because you want to get as much sky as possible. So those three lenses are the ones I will take with me to Moab. But I could probably get away with just the 24-70 and the 70-200.
Yeah, I just wanted to show you this. I put a screenshot up of a fisheye lens. This was a fisheye lens shot in Moab where we were light painting, and the new wide-angle correction filter in Photoshop did a great job of just straightening everything out. I mean, I was really, really happy with it. And so, I mean, you think about fisheye and you think about distortion, but here's a way of using it where I didn't get distortion. I was still able to get the galaxy going up through the barn and the sky and everything else. So, people think about fisheye and think about distortion being really weird. Here's a way of using it where it isn't, and you get to me, that was an incredible shot to use.
Yeah. So that's two talents.
I want to throw one. Sorry.
Go.
I was going to say one more thing I'm going to bring with me, and I actually have it here, so I'll grab it real quickly. It's a time-lapse device. Got my stuff in the way here. It's called an Astro, and it's very new. I got it through a Kickstarter, and so I haven't really used it a whole lot. By the time I get out there, I'm sure I'll be pretty versed in using it. But I have a tripod mount to the bottom. Stick this on my tripod, stick my camera up here, and then just let it go. And so I may even bring a second camera so I can do some time lapse in the background. So that might get a chance to play around with that. But this was appealing to me because it allows so what happens is it doesn't just do time lapse straight on. It actually turns the camera while it's doing the time lapse. And that's why it's appealing, and it's so small that this is going to easily fit in my bag with very little. It's not going to really take the space of like a full lens, or it's not going to require an entire bag on its own. So I'm kind of excited to play around with that in Moab.
Very cool.
Another thing, Rob, that this is something that people forget about, but bring in a flashlight that you can put on your head. One of the wearable flashlights, headlamps or whatever they're called. Those are one of the things. I mean, when you're getting up early in the morning, you're staying out at night. A lot of people forget to bring them, or they've got a flashlight and you have to walk with it. Having one of those headlamps on your head so that you're walking can see and keeping your hands free is just invaluable.
Yeah,
I have an LED shirt I just wear, and I just look like a beacon. I just glow.
Well, I like the ones that put out a red light because it illuminates, but it doesn't blind people.
Yeah.
Get your night vision intact too if you're doing night star photography.
Exactly. So that's a good point, Randy.
Having a red light is awesome. So yeah, just some little gear tips. We do light painting, which is involving flashlights. So we always have a few lights with us, but it's always good if you have your own flashlight, headlight for just getting around. We tend to stay together as groups, but people also go off on their own, and you want to have a light. You want to also make sure you have extra batteries for whatever light that you do bring, because by the end of the trip, you want to make sure you can still see.
Okay.
Here's some light painting that we have done in the past. If you
Wow.
can show my screen.
Yeah, so there's Moab.
Oh, I cannot wait for this.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So excited.
Brian is going to be joining us in the for the Moab trip, and I'm going to be joining him for the Teton trip.
Yeah, so we've got 4 for every trip, which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well, I actually got a couple Tetons too that we did some light painting on.
Well, Randy's doing this. Let's talk software since we're looking at some software. And
Wait,
Randy,
can I just there's just because batteries came up super quickly.
Yeah.
So with batteries, obviously, it's one of those things I think a lot of people, and I'm not talking about the AA's or AAA's, which are important, but usually you're buying those are alkaline batteries. I don't think they get affected. They don't get impacted by severe cold weather as much as lithium batteries do. Like cold weather and lithium batteries, it's like they're kryptonite. And so things like a hand warmer in a pocket type of thing is really important. The other thing that I did, and I know this goes across the board, it definitely is for Canon, and I know for Sony, I bought a third-party charger that actually charges 2 batteries at once. Sony, one of the, I love all these A7 cameras and stuff. They suck with batteries. That's one of the biggest. They suck.
Yeah.
So I have 8 batteries that I travel with me, and it's not a quick charge. I mean, it takes a while. So usually in the evenings or when we're retiring for the day, being able to double up and bring charge 2 batteries, and it's not unheard of. I'll bring an entirely secondary charger to do 3 batteries. The other thing, super quickly, because Nicole got it for me.
As he knocks over his desk.
No, so this is such a wonderful device. We're always scrambling for outlets. You can never find enough.
Oh yeah, good
Nicole
job.
got this for me. It's called I think my Monster. It's a Monster Power. It's got 3 regular outlets and it's got a USB port. So this thing, and it folds over itself. This thing goes with me everywhere when I
I
travel.
love that. I want one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're awesome.
Amazon.
I've got. Just talking about power. So I've got this little unit, a Flip It.
Mhm.
So it's got this outlet here. It's got 2 USB chargers, another outlet on this side, another one on this side, and then on the back, the prongs flip out.
Nice.
And this is a great way to make friends at an airport.
Exactly.
You walk up.
We're talking about this from a landscape photography, but it also works really well when you're doing travel photography because you really only need to bring one converter to, if you're going somewhere that doesn't have the standard outlets that we have here in the U.S. or wherever wherever you're coming from. So you get whatever device, you're the one that you have, the Flip It, or the one that you have, Brian, use one converter, and then you have like 3 or 4 different ways to actually charge all your electronics because we're geeks and we have too many things to plug into the wall.
Yeah, and another thing I got more gadgety, but so this is really more for my phone, my iPhone, and my iPad. So it's actually a solar. This is a solar cell, and then USB out for charging. I'll leave this on the dashboard. I have it sitting on my windowsill, and I just charge my phone up off of it all the time. So having power in the field is really important, unfortunately, these days, because without it, you're dead, right?
Yep.
So having extra batteries, extra memory cards, and I do this, and I'm going to guess you guys too, is have a second camera body too. Would you think that's a safe? If you're going on this trip, if you don't own one, another good time to rent. So Borrow Lenses is a great place. I've rented through them. LensRentals.com is another great one. I've been renting through them recently.
Lens Pros.
Lens Pro to go. So if you don't have an extra body, wherever you're going, you're probably paying a lot of money to go there, to stay there. You've done a lot of work. If your one camera body fails, you're just wasted your trip. So make sure you have a second body so you're not just walking around shooting with your phone, which is nothing against shooting with your phone, but it's probably not why you went there. Probably not.
I mean, also, if you not even for backup purposes, but let's say we're out, doing stars, you can have your fisheye on one, and you can have your telephoto or your 2470 on the other, and kind of double fisting it and getting. Oh, but I guess you would need 2 tripods too in those situations. But
Yeah.
Or a Gorilla Pod, or just a little.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a Gorilla Pod. Actually, my webcam is using right now, but that I always have on my pack. And the big thing is doing a time lapse. So you might be doing a bunch of stills but you also might want to do a time lapse of the sunrise or sunset or whatever.
Yep.
When we're in Tetons, it's going to be during a new moon, so it's going to be really
nice.
dark skies.
Yes.
When we're in Moab, it's going to be right around a full moon, so maybe we can get some shots with moon rising, moon in the scene. So
That'd be cool.
it really depends on what you're hoping to get. Really dark skies, or maybe having the moon in the scene is pretty cool too. So another thing to check aside from the weather and the sunrise is moonrise and moonset, and knowing.
Mm-hmm.
I always bring just a regular old analog compass. You know, if you don't know what direction you're facing, it's really helpful to know that, especially if you're doing star trails, which we'll try to do anyway, do some star trails. There's lots of ways to find north, but having a compass is a real easy way to do that.
You know, another helpful thing, and I had this sitting here, I'm glad you brought that up, is this is a little GPS device, and it works, I think it only works on the Mark III, maybe one other Canon camera, and then a lot of cameras these days are coming out with GPS inside of the camera, like the 6D has it. I'm not sure about the Nikon, but this is, I believe you can actually see what direction you're facing, and it tells you your altitude and all of these really fun things. But this is great for I like to know where I was photographing and where all the locations were, and I can see them all. When I open them up in Lightroom, I can see all those little pins on the map, you know, of all the places I've shot.
How much does something like that go for, Nicole, anyway? Is it?
Brian, do you remember? It's like a couple $100 probably for this one.
Yeah, the GPS one is.
$250 maybe.
Yeah, between $250 and $350 is the.
Now, I will say that, like, just in terms of using GPS for your camera, this is, you know, it's a little pricey. So if you're, you know, if it's not something you're going to use all the time, then it's probably not a huge deal. But another way to do it, and actually I have a blog post about this over on Photo Focus, where you can take whatever you take with your iPhone, if you're in, let's say you're going to be in the same general vicinity, you take one photo with your iPhone, which is pretty much always, or any smartphone that is going to record the GPS, you go into Lightroom, you can sync that GPS data with all of the photos that you were actually shooting in that same spot from your DSLR. So you can still, it's not going to be as specific, but if you want to say, hey, I'm in Moab, you know, and you want to remember all your photos from Moab and you want to go to them easily, then you can just kind of do it that way.
It gets you in the ballpark, and it will work even if you don't have cell service. So I've used that in the middle of Death Valley out at the racetrack where there's just nothing for signal, and still have the GPS from my phone shot on there. So yeah, that's excellent. We're kind of coming towards the end of the hour, and I definitely want to just talk about some software stuff, and we'll definitely put all of this in the blog post and all these links. There's one other question before I get to that. So Adam is asking, do we pack toilet paper?
I can answer that one too.
Yeah, I always pack the first aid kit, and toilet paper is essentially part of that, as are those hand wipes and any feminine products as well, because you just never know. So when we try to go on these trips, you never know. And for the first aid kit, even things that absorb blood are good in your first aid kit. So no matter what body part you're using it with, you know, it's good to have it on hand. So
I have a tip though it's mostly for women or even hikers. You know, women who are going to travel and run around in the woods with a bunch of guys who don't have an issue with this. I take a toilet paper roll, and I don't take the whole one. I maybe have like a half roll, and you pull out the actual cardboard from it, so it'll squish a little bit better. Put that in a Ziploc inside of another Ziploc. So then you kind of, you know, you have the toilet paper in one, and then you have the.
Okay.
You know, I think y'all are following me. So that's my tip. I actually do that because I'm usually out with Brian, or, you know, it's almost always a bunch of guys that I'm taking. You know, we're out and shooting waterfalls and stuff, and they're just like going off to the side, and I'm just like, you guys suck.
Yeah. Well, and you know, most of the places that will be, well, not so much in Moab, but in Tetons there are facilities, you know, rustic facilities in some places. So more important than toilet paper might be gas mask or something else to get in there. But yeah, I mean, it happens. And so we always try to be prepared with basic first aid stuff as well, and that's just normal human function. So definitely do that. So from that conversation, let's talk software. Obviously, I think we all use Lightroom. I think we can kind of, you know, bypass that. It's pretty important. So what else do you use aside from Lightroom in your workflow for whatever part of the process that you do? Anyone want to jump in there?
I can go ahead and jump in. You know, there's always Photoshop. I'm finding myself using Photoshop less and less with photographs. I use it for other things like design things that I'm doing, unless there's something that I need to clone out, massive cloning or something that's really patching pixels around. But I usually go from Lightroom, and I use On1 software. I really like them. I've written books about them. I just I know what kind of results I can get from them. And they have things like a lens blur where I can actually mimic shallow depth of field or intensify an existing shallow depth of field. You can do a lot with that software. So that's my pick.
So someone who didn't have Photoshop, if they just had Lightroom and didn't have Photoshop, the On1 suite would be a nice addition.
Absolutely. They have layers, so you can work with layers, and it's more than I mostly use Perfect Effects, and Perfect Mask is a great one too because you can drop in different skies, and they make it so much easier than Photoshop. So I use that a lot. But they have other modules too: black and white, portrait, resize. So I feel like I'm advertising for them right now.
No, well, I mean, it's what you use.
Well, I mean, On1's my choice too. And really, I love their black and white conversion plugin. If I'm doing a black and white, that's probably where I'm going to do it in. I think they do a great job with that. I think the ease of using it's great. And Lightroom is, I'm going to try to do as much as possible in Lightroom, and then just use everything else for what I need. But On1's usually the one I'm going to use, and more than that, it's going to be the black and white plugin.
I've been finding I've been going to the Nik suite a lot recently, and the new Analog Effects 2 that just came out is really nice. Obviously, Lightroom is, I try and do the most possible in there, and Photoshop those are the two my biggest go-tos of all. But beyond that, yeah, I probably go Nik a little more. What about you, Brian? What's your?
Well, I mean, I used to work at On1 for about 2 years, and so admittedly, I haven't used it as much as I used to. I do use it still, just to keep up with what they're doing. But working at Google, we have the Nik collection, and just for what it's worth, I don't use anything except for Analog Effects Pro 2 and Silver Effects. I'll sometimes use color effects. I haven't been doing HDR in a long time, like tone mapping. But when I do, I use Photomatix Pro to do the tone mapping. But for me, yeah, Lightroom does the heavy lifting in terms of the corrections and the ratings and just getting it to a good place. Analog Effects, I don't know what it is, but I love the outputs that I get for my type of photography. I really just love it. So on the mobile side, I'm usually using Snapseed and VSCO are like my two. If I ever go back to iPhone, I would use Mextures. I tried it out recently, and it's exceptional. That is a wonderful iOS app.
Yeah, I grabbed back in the day when they had the Snapseed for desktop version, and I still have that on both my Mac and Windows machines, and I still use it. I still, it's still kind of a fun app to play around with.
Yeah, a lot of people miss it.
Yeah. What else? Just to kind of wrap up, I want to talk a little bit at the workshops that we do during the daytime after the morning shoot. We come back to the classroom. We do some software demos. We do Lightroom. We talk Photoshop. We do On1. We do Nik.
Rob, can I stop you one second?
Yeah, go, please, yeah.
Before we go to the classroom, especially in the Tetons, we stop at the jailhouse for bacon.
Yes, we do enjoy the bacon. We do enjoy the bacon there. Yeah.
I love bacon.
That's a New Year's logo. Sign up for bacon. Join us.
Just wait. There's good eating on these trips. So, so I wanted to talk a little bit about bringing your images home, and it's a big process. I'll have to put some links in this blog post. But one of the things I wanted to mention is in the field, and this kind of ties into Lightroom, so I just want to mention this. So this is a thing I've had for years now. This is an Epson P7000 viewer. They don't make them anymore.
Right, yeah.
But it has card reader slots in the top. You power it up. It's a hard drive. This one's probably only about 150 gigs. But it's usually enough for a weekend trip for me. And so when I'm in the field, I'll just pop the cards in here, and now I'm making a backup of my memory card to this. And I keep this after the shoot's over in a separate bag than my camera and my memory card, so that if my camera bag ever should take a walk, this would be in a different bag, hopefully, so I would still have at least my pictures. This can double as a backup card reader, if my other card reader failed for some reason. So this way, I come home and I've already got my memory card copies. I've got this copy, and I probably have already put those copies on my laptop as well in a temporary catalog. So, do you guys have any tips for kind of getting your images home again in a safe way?
I do. I do something kind of similar to that. I don't have the viewer, but I'm taking a laptop with me, and I back up everything just locally to my laptop. But I also have one and maybe even two of the Western Digital passports, I think they're called. They're really small. They're like, I don't have any by my side or I'd show you, but they're really they're like this big. And then I just get a little case to carry it with. It's got a little small, short little USB. And then with Lightroom, I import all of my images, even on my laptop, into Lightroom, and you can do a backup to another source at the exact same time you're in doing the initial import. So then I usually carry enough cards, depending on where I'm traveling to. I usually carry enough cards with me so I don't actually have to wipe my cards. So I typically will then have all of my photos on my cards, all of my photos on my laptop, and all of my photos on a separate hard drive, and every single one of those gets in a different bag. So so everything is just the exact same thing. Where it's like, unless I lost all of my luggage, I would I would be okay at least with my photos. So.
Yeah. Hey, Brian or Randy, anything to add to that?
No, I mean I just got back from a 2-week trip in Italy, and because I do shoot a lot of HDR, I basically shot everything HDR. I had 21,000 images. So, needless to say, I had 2 extra hard drives to back everything up on.
Yeah.
Randy does 5 to 7 bracket HDRs. So
that's what I use. That's why my Lightroom catalog right now 170,546 because there were a few years where it was 7 exposures, or I was using a promote control, which Randy, I think you got from Mike Wong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had dinner with him. We were talking about that. So with the promote, I would do 9 exposures. Sony, sadly, another gripe. They I don't know what their engineers are thinking, but it's still only 3 exposures for their bracketing. When I travel, I'm all SD. I don't need CF cards anymore. So it's a little bit easier in terms of like with my laptop, I have an SD card slot built into it. What I'll do is I'll also always try to travel with an external SD card reader that's USB 3 because my laptop supports it and it's just a faster bus speed, so photos get transferred faster. I also, when I went to Cambodia with Nicole and when I go to Australia, I also travel with external hard drives, and I just use an app on the Mac called ChronoSync, which for that purpose, it's an ad hoc job that just backs up the photos onto the hard drives. And Rob, just like you said, one will always stay. I take 2. One goes with me, and one stays just in case. There really are hard drives, even SSDs. If you don't want an actual physical hard drive, if you want a solid-state drive, are so nominally priced when you consider, what if. And that's a tragedy. And you can't be, I'm not as aggressive on shorter trips, like just a weekend trip. I'm pretty sure, like on Sunday, I'm going to go visit Matt Kloskowski up in Rainier for 4 days because he's shooting a Kelby training class. And I'm just going to hang out and help.
Cool.
But for that, I would bring, because who knows what. But if it's just an overnight thing, I'm not as worried about it.
Cool. I see there's one last question. Maybe we can end this on that question, and if any other questions pop up. But Adam's asking, when we're doing our light painting, do we use a headlamp or a flashlight? Well, there's two types of light painting we tend to do on our workshops. One is we do.
Can you show me? Oh,
yeah,
you
I'll
got.
put you up. So I got my little stream light here. So we do some. Can you put up some?
Mark that you're answering the question so that.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I've been trying to do that.
No, you've been doing a good job.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, so we do some tabletop setups to practice in the classroom using these little pen lights, these stream lights. We'll put the links to all this, and maybe Randy, you can get some of those images up. And then the other thing we do, Randy's holding it here. We use these big Brinkmans.
Oh, cool lens flare.
You like that?
We use those out when we're doing the outdoor light painting on whether it's the barns on Mormon Row or the rocks in Moab. Or,
You want me to show some, Rob?
yeah, some of the buildings that we've done. We went up to, what was that town, ghost town we went? Cisco?
Cisco, yeah.
Where's the other one we did up in, when we were in Death Valley? We went up over
Rhyolite.
Rhyolite, yeah.
That's nice.
So, yeah, so there's El Capitan in Yosemite.
This is the largest thing we've light painted.
That's
This was a 3,000-foot mountain, and we painted them with that flashlight.
Yeah.
That's
We had two lights going. We had one down by the water there, and then Dave Black was up on the rock closer doing that. And so so we use those.
Black's the master of light painting.
Dave Black is just an incredible photographer and just one of my favorite human beings. I really just love that guy. He's been an instructor with us in the past. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him this year, but hopefully we'll see him again in the
You got a
future.
new grand.
Yeah, he just had I haven't heard yet, but he was expecting a granddaughter or a grandbaby. Grandbaby. I don't know if it was boy or girl.
Yeah.
But we'll see him at Photoshop World. So
Yeah.
that would be great.
But these are ones that we all did.
Yeah, so we do some teaching on that. That's why we're up early and out, and then we're out late because once the sun goes down, then it's light painting time, and we really try to maximize our time out there. So let me just say we got a nice thanks. James says great hangout. Thank you, James. Appreciate that. Any last words you guys have? Want to wrap up? Say farewell. Anything we didn't get to cover? Oh, there's a whole lot we didn't get to cover, but.
I just say I'm really excited for the upcoming trips. You know, it's been a few years since I've been to Moab, and before, you know, like I went to Moab twice before I was really what I would consider a landscape photographer, and it took me till moving out to the Pacific Northwest and kind of finding my groove with it. And so for me, I'm like getting energized, and I'm super excited to go to Moab and actually photograph it and do the light painting and everything with the pros here. So. Yes.
I'm excited to have both Nicole and Brian coming out with us. I mean, these are, just two great photographers and great people to be around. So I'm really excited to be able to hang out with you guys and photograph. It'll be a great time.
I can't wait. I mean, my parting advice in terms of this stuff is like, and it's kind of like the PSA type of thing. Like, let people know where you're going. Leave a plan so people know what's going on. Check in when you can, and also make sure that you, if you need to get permits, you get your permits. You pay. All these national parks, they're on the brink, man. They're not. They can be hurting. So Nicole and I have our Oregon State Pass. We'll get our national parks pass, and do your part to contribute to these wonderful societies and agencies that help manicure and maintain our beautiful lands here in the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I just saw out in Teton they had a group working on restoring the corral fencing around the barns on Mormon Row, and it just looks fantastic.
Cool.
Oh, really?
So we really try to leave no trace. We try to, if we find you find garbage out there, we try and pack it out. We definitely try to be conscious of other photographers that are around there. We get up early, we try to beat the crowds, but guess what? People still come, even if you're there early. So you got to be careful, try and stay on the trails. A lot of this environment's very fragile. Out at Death Valley, out on the playa and the racetrack, Most of the time it's hard pack. It looks like you'll sink, but you won't. But if it's wet, don't go out there. You know, you're going to make footprints. So we really try to take good care of this time that we're out there, the property, the land, this beautiful country that we're in. So we really try hard to do that. One last thing I'll say, Deb is saying thanks and see you at Photoshop World. So we're all going to be at Photoshop World, and we hope to see you there too. If you want a great prep for our workshop, go to Photoshop World, take Dave Black's pre-conference class. It happens the day before Photoshop World. He's going out to Nelson. He's taking a group out to Nelson to do light painting.
It is unbelievable.
Randy's been on that before. It's just great. Dave is the master of light painting, and just a wonderful. Just to spend time with him is just fantastic. So go to Photoshop World, and if you go to Photo Focus, I believe there is still a discount to save $50 off, and I think you can still get a somewhat early bird, so you can save $150 off Photoshop World. I think if you go there, go now, go today, last day in July, and go to Photo Focus and check out the discount there. So thank you, Brian, Nicole, Randy. Thanks for everyone who tuned in and sending questions. Look for the blog post on digitalphotoworkshops.com soon with all the links to everything that we mentioned and probably a whole bunch more we're going to jam in there. And sign up for our newsletter if you want to be Deb's saying the Dave's pre-con sold out. Sorry, well, just come to our workshop then. Yeah, that one goes fast. I should have known it was sold out. Yeah. But go sign up for our newsletter. Maybe you'll win one of our free passes we're giving away. So thanks everyone, and hopefully we'll see you out there taking pictures.
Bye.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for doing all this.
Yeah, Rob, thank you, Randy.